Adrian's stomach twisted. The tension in the room crackled like a live wire, the weight of secrets pressing down on him. If what you're saying is true, prove it. When a long-lost heir, Nicholas Calloway, returns to claim his birthright, a ruthless battle ignites between him and Adrian, the Empire's reigning successor. But as secrets unravel and war escalates, the real question remains: who will be left standing when the dust settles? But before we start the video, let us know where you're watching this video, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Story Store, and please share your thoughts about this story in comment section. The grand ballroom of the Astoria Hotel shimmered under the golden chandeliers, filled with the elite of high society. The anniversary dinner of Adrian Calloway and his wife Evelyn was the event of the season. But the moment Evelyn stood up and tapped her glass, the air in the room thickened with unease. Adrian, the powerful billionaire, had expected a perfectly orchestrated evening, a public display of the ideal couple. Yet, as Evelyn lifted her champagne flute, her eyes gleaming with something he couldn't place, a sharp sensation of foreboding crawled up his spine. Then she spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen," Evelyn's voice rang clear, a perfect balance of grace and authority. "I thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate our anniversary. It has been a year filled with surprises, but none greater than the one I am about to share with you now." A murmur spread through the crowd, intrigued by her tone. Adrian leaned forward, his jaw tightening. What was she doing? Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, she slid an envelope from her clutch and held it up. "Inside this envelope is a truth hidden for far too long," she declared, her gaze never leaving Adrian's face, "and tonight the truth will finally come to light." A hushed silence fell over the room. Anticipation thick in the air. Adrian's pulse pounded. What was in that envelope? 1 year ago, Adrian Calloway had found himself in a desperate situation. His company, Calloway Enterprises, was on the brink of losing a crucial multi-billion-dollar deal with the Lexington family. The condition for sealing the deal? A marriage alliance with Evelyn Lexington, the poised yet seemingly unremarkable daughter of his rival. Adrian had never wanted a wife. His heart was frozen, his mind wired for power and control. But Evelyn had been the perfect solution, an arranged contract, a means to an end. She had agreed to the terms without hesitation, making him believe she was just another pawn in the high-stakes game of corporate politics. But tonight, standing before him, she wasn't the woman he thought he had married. There was something different about her. A confidence, a mystery he had never cared to decipher before. And now, she was about to reveal something he never saw coming. As Evelyn pulled the paper from the envelope, she unfolded it with excruciating slowness. Adrian's fingers curled into fists beneath the table. "This," she said, holding up the document, "is a hidden contract, one you never expected me to find." Adrian's blood ran cold. "What contract?" she continued. "A deal struck between your father and mine, signed years before you and I ever met. This document states that the marriage wasn't just about a business merger. It was about something far darker, something you were never meant to know, Adrian." Whispers spread through the crowd. Adrian shot to his feet. "What are you talking about, Evelyn?" he demanded, his voice low but deadly. Her lips curved into an enigmatic smile. "Oh, I think you should ask your father about the Calloway family's deepest secret. But don't worry, I'll give you a hint. It starts with a missing heir." Gasps rippled through the room. A missing heir? What was she talking about? Adrian's mind raced. His father had always been a man of ruthless ambition, but had he hidden something so monumental? Evelyn leaned closer, her voice a whisper only for him. "Your family stole something years ago, and now, Adrian, it's time for the truth to come out." At that moment, a crash echoed through the ballroom. The grand entrance doors flung open, and a figure stepped inside. A man, looking eerily familiar, except his face was a mirror of Adrian's own. Adrian's breath caught. Impossible. The man smirked. "Hello, brother." The room stood still, the weight of the words suffocating. Adrian's pulse thundered in his ears as he locked eyes with the man before him. It was like looking into a distorted reflection. Every feature eerily familiar, yet entirely foreign. The stranger took a step forward, his gaze unwavering. "I suppose introductions are in order," he said coolly, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "I'm Nicholas Calloway, and I believe you and I have unfinished business." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Evelyn remained poised, her expression unreadable. Adrian's fingers clenched into fists beneath the table. "This is impossible," Adrian growled. "I don't have a brother." Nicholas let out a dark chuckle. "Of course you don't. Not officially. Our dear father made sure of that. He erased me from existence the moment he decided you were the perfect heir. But unfortunately for him, I'm not so easy to erase." Adrian turned sharply to Evelyn. "How long have you known?" She met his gaze without hesitation. "Long enough to know that your father built his empire on deception, and that you were never meant to inherit it alone." Adrian's father, William Calloway, stepped forward, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "This is outrageous," he spat. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this man is a fraud." Nicholas tilted his head, amusement flickering in his eyes. "Still lying, even now? Tell me, father, did you really think I wouldn't find out the truth, that I wouldn't return?" Adrian's stomach twisted. The tension in the room crackled like a live wire, the weight of secrets pressing down on him. "If what you're saying is true, prove it." Nicholas reached into his pocket, pulling out a worn photograph. He tossed it onto the table in front of Adrian. It was an old picture, the edges frayed with time, but the image was unmistakable. Two identical boys, no older than 5, standing side by side. Adrian's throat tightened. It was him, and beside him, Nicholas. William's face darkened. "That means nothing." Nicholas smirked. "Then let's talk about something that does. The reason I was taken. The reason you tried to get rid of me, because, dear father, the truth is much worse than just a stolen inheritance." The room braced for impact as Nicholas delivered his final blow. "You didn't just erase me, you tried to have me killed." A collective gasp filled the ballroom. Adrian's blood ran cold. William Calloway's carefully composed mask finally cracked. And in that moment, Adrian realized his entire life had been built on a lie. The air in the grand ballroom felt thick with tension, as though the very walls were closing in on the Calloway family. Adrian's mind whirled, his breath coming in short, uneven bursts. The revelation of his long-lost twin brother, Nicholas, had sent a shockwave through him, but the claim that their father had tried to have Nicholas killed, that was something else entirely. William Calloway's expression, normally unreadable, faltered for a fraction of a second. It was enough. Nicholas caught it too. His smirk deepened, satisfaction gleaming in his eyes. "Ah, there it is. The look of a man who knows his sins are catching up to him." William straightened, his voice sharp as a blade. "This is absurd. You expect me to believe that you, a stranger, are my son." Nicholas stepped forward, reaching into his jacket. Adrian tensed, half expecting a weapon, but instead Nicholas pulled out a thick, weathered folder. He tossed it onto the table between them. "I've spent years gathering proof," he said coolly. "DNA tests, legal documents, records that were buried deep under layers of forged paperwork. You didn't just erase me from the family, you erased me from existence." Adrian's gaze flicked to Evelyn, who stood silently beside him. She had known. And yet, she had chosen this very moment to reveal everything. Why? Evelyn met his questioning look with a calm intensity. Because, Adrian, the truth needed to come out when it would have the most impact, when no one could sweep it under the rug. A hush fell over the room as Adrian reached for the folder with shaking hands. He flipped it open, his eyes scanning the documents inside. Birth certificates. A hospital discharge paper listing not one, but 2 male infants. And then, DNA reports. His breath hitched. The proof was undeniable. Nicholas Calloway was his brother. His fingers clenched the edges of the paper. "Why?" he asked hoarsely, lifting his gaze to his father. "Why would you do this?" William's jaw tightened, his face hard as stone. "Because there could only be one heir." The simple, emotionless admission sent a cold chill through Adrian's veins. Nicholas scoffed. "And you made sure of that, didn't you? When I was 5 years old, you staged an accident. You sent me away, thinking I wouldn't survive. But I did." His voice darkened. "And I've spent my life making sure I'd come back." A murmur rippled through the gathered guests. This wasn't just family drama. It was scandal on an unimaginable level. Adrian's hands curled into fists. His entire life had been carefully structured, built upon the foundation of being the sole Calloway heir. And now it was clear he had been living a lie. "Everything I've ever done," Adrian whispered, barely able to contain the fury roiling within him, "was based on a foundation of deceit." He turned to Nicholas. "And what do you want? Revenge?" Nicholas met his gaze with something unreadable. "Justice." William slammed a fist onto the table. "You think you can waltz in here and take what's mine? You are nothing but a ghost, a stain I wiped clean years ago." Adrian's spine stiffened. "No." He exhaled sharply, glancing at Evelyn, who watched silently. Then, turning back to Nicholas, he said, "He's not a ghost, he's a Calloway. And if he has proof, then he has just as much right to this family as I do." Gasps filled the room. William's face turned red with fury. "You ungrateful—" Adrian's voice was cold steel. "No, Father. The only one who should be grateful is you. Because if what Nicholas says is true, you should be rotting in prison." A slow smirk spread across Nicholas's face. "Oh, don't worry, brother. That's exactly where I plan to send him." Adrian felt the ground shift beneath him. This wasn't just a fight over inheritance, this was war. And the battle had only just begun. The aftershocks of Nicholas's revelation still echoed through the grand ballroom. The air crackled with tension as guests exchanged whispered theories, their gazes darting between Adrian, Nicholas, and William Calloway. This wasn't just a family scandal. It was an upheaval that could shake the entire Calloway empire to its core. William's face was a mask of controlled rage, but his eyes, sharp, calculating, betrayed the storm brewing beneath. "You think you've won something by showing up here?" he sneered at Nicholas. "You think you can just rewrite history with a handful of documents?" Nicholas's smirk didn't falter. "I don't need to rewrite anything. The truth has already been written, and now the world knows it." Adrian remained still, his mind spinning with the weight of everything that had unraveled in the past hour. He had spent his entire life shaping himself into the perfect heir, the rightful successor of the Calloway fortune and legacy. And now he wasn't the only one. He turned to Nicholas, his voice quieter but no less intense. "What's your endgame?" Nicholas's gaze sharpened. "I want what's mine." Adrian's jaw tightened. "And if I don't step aside?" Nicholas let out a short chuckle, shaking his head. "I didn't come here expecting you to step aside, Adrian. I came here to fight." William scoffed. "You have nothing. No power, no influence. You're an outsider pretending to be one of us." Nicholas leaned forward, his voice dangerously soft. "You'd be surprised what I have, old man, and I promise you by the time I'm done you'll be left with nothing." Evelyn, who had remained quiet amidst the verbal battle, finally spoke. "This isn't just about revenge, is it, Nicholas?" He flicked his gaze to her, something dark flashing in his eyes. "Number. It's about justice and making sure no one else suffers the way I did." Adrian inhaled deeply, forcing himself to push past his own personal turmoil. Whatever Nicholas's plans were, they didn't just affect their father, they affected him too, and he wasn't about to let his life be upended without a fight. "Then we're at war," Adrian said, meeting Nicholas's gaze head-on. A slow smile spread across Nicholas's face. "So, it would seem—" William exhaled sharply, turning to Adrian. "Are you really going to let this imposter challenge everything we've built?" Adrian's response was measured but firm. "If he has proof, he's no imposter." He glanced at Nicholas. "But don't mistake my acknowledgement for submission. I don't intend to lose." Nicholas's eyes gleamed with something unreadable. "Neither do I." The battle lines had been drawn, and for the first time in his life, Adrian wasn't just fighting for his family's legacy, he was fighting for his own survival. The tension from the confrontation lingered long after the guests had left the ballroom. William stormed out, his fury barely contained, while Nicholas remained composed, his calculated expression giving nothing away. Adrian knew better than to underestimate him. Nicholas had come prepared, and whatever moves he had planned, they would be devastating. Adrian retreated to his office, where Evelyn followed, closing the door behind her. "What are you going to do?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know yet, but I won't sit back and let him tear down everything I've built." Evelyn stepped closer, her presence grounding him. "He has proof, Adrian. You saw the documents. He's not bluffing." "I know," Adrian admitted, "but the Calloway Empire isn't just about blood. It's about power, influence, and strategy. If he thinks he can walk in here and take everything just because of a DNA test, he's mistaken." A knock on the door interrupted them. His assistant entered, her face pale. "Sir, you need to see this." She handed Adrian a tablet. The screen displayed a breaking news article. "Nicholas Calloway files legal claim to family fortune. Scandal rocks business world." Adrian's grip on the tablet tightened. He's already making his move. Evelyn looked at him, concern flickering in her gaze. "What's your next move?" Adrian's mind raced. He had expected Nicholas to take action, but not this quickly. The legal battle would be public, brutal, and damaging to their reputation. If Nicholas won, the entire company would be destabilized. He exhaled sharply. "I need to get ahead of this. If Nicholas wants a war, he's going to get one." Across the city, Nicholas sat in his own office, watching the headlines spread like wildfire. He leaned back in his chair, a slow, satisfied smile forming. "The first strike has been made," he murmured. "Let's see how you respond, Adrian." The morning after Nicholas's legal claim sent shockwaves through the business world, Adrian found himself in an emergency meeting with his legal team. The Calloway Empire was in crisis, and if he didn't act fast, everything he had worked for would be at risk. "Our best option is to challenge the legitimacy of his claim," one of the lawyers suggested. We can argue that regardless of DNA, he was never officially recognized as an heir, and therefore has no legal right to the fortune. Adrian listened, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. That won't be enough. He's not just fighting for money, he's fighting for justice. If we make this about legal technicalities, we'll look like we're covering something up. Evelyn, standing at the edge of the room, spoke up. Then what's your plan? Adrian's gaze darkened. We need leverage. Hours later, he met with a private investigator he had hired the night before. The man slid a file across the desk. I looked into Nicholas's past. He's smart, careful, but no one's spotless. Adrian opened the file. Photos, documents, bank transactions, all pieces of Nicholas's life that painted a picture of a man who had fought his way up from nothing. There was one particular document that caught his eye, a sealed court record from years ago. What's this? A lawsuit settlement. He was involved in a corporate sabotage case 5 years ago. The details were buried, but if this goes public, it'll raise serious questions about his credibility. Adrian exhaled. This was exactly what he needed. Meanwhile, Nicholas was preparing for the next phase of his plan. He had built alliances, gathered support, and was ready to push William Calloway into a corner. But before he could make his next move, he received an anonymous email. You have skeletons, Nicholas, and I'm about to bring them to light. Attached was a copy of the court settlement. Nicholas's jaw clenched. He knew Adrian wouldn't go down without a fight, but he hadn't expected him to find this. His phone rang. Adrian's voice was cool. Looks like you're not as untouchable as you thought. Nicholas smirked, despite the tension brewing inside him. Is that your play, blackmail? It's strategy. There was a long pause before Nicholas spoke again. We're more alike than I thought. Adrian's tone hardened. I'm not doing this out of spite, but if you push, I will push back harder. Nicholas chuckled. Then let's see who wins. The war had escalated to its breaking point. The Calloway scandal had reached its peak, and the media frenzy was relentless. Nicholas's past had been exposed, but instead of destroying him, it only fueled his determination. He held a press conference, admitting to his mistakes but making it clear that he would not back down. Adrian watched, grudgingly impressed. Nicholas wasn't just a fighter, he was a survivor. Then, the unexpected happened. William Calloway was arrested. The investigation into his past dealings had been quietly reopening behind the scenes. Nicholas had supplied key evidence that exposed years of fraudulent business practices, offshore accounts, and, most damning of all, his attempt to erase Nicholas from existence. Adrian received the news just as he was preparing for his next move. He read the headlines in stunned silence. William Calloway taken into custody. Decades of corruption uncovered. He barely had time to process it when Nicholas walked into his office. Looks like I just won, Nicholas said. Adrian set the tablet down and exhaled. This isn't just a victory for you, it's a reckoning for the entire family. Nicholas sat across from him. So, what now? Adrian studied him for a long moment. The company needs stability, we both know that. If we keep fighting, it'll fall apart. Nicholas leaned back. Are you suggesting a truce? A partnership, Adrian corrected. If you're truly a Calloway, then prove it. Help me rebuild what our father destroyed. Nicholas was silent for a moment. Then a slow smile crossed his lips. I never wanted to burn it all down, just to claim what was mine. He extended his hand. Adrian hesitated, then took it. The war was over, and from the ashes of the Calloway Empire a new legacy would rise, one built by two brothers who had fought their whole lives, only to realize they were stronger together.